Hi, this is Joe Shannon. I'm a lawyer, a husband, a father of 6 kids, and I also host a podcast called Opening Statement with Joe Shannon. Please consider listening to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and any other folks that host podcasts. Just Google Joe Shannon and podcast, and you'll find it. I hope you enjoyed the show. We're here today with Carey Meldon. How are you today, Carey?
Hey, Joe, how you doing, man? I'm doing okay. I'm actually in my apartment, and we're working remotely here, and just trying to take every in front of us and doing what we can do.
So where do you call home, Carey?
All right. Well, right now I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and our firm has offices throughout the state of Florida. We have offices in Gainesville, Ocala, and I'm in South Florida, which is really where the coronavirus has been the most problematic in the state of Florida. And actually, I live really close to where the cruise ships came in yesterday. So I'm actually looking at one right outside my window. It's still docked outside in the ocean. So I'm down here. I'm in South Florida.
And why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners as far as like where'd you grow up and how did you end up getting to be across the street or looking out the window at some cruise ships?
Well, I was born and raised in Gainesville, Florida, which is the home of the University of Florida Gators, as many of the listeners may be aware. And I ended up going to back in 2002 in the Tampa area, where I attended a law school named Stetson, which is actually Florida's oldest law school. And after I graduated law school, I ended up going to Daytona Beach and practiced as an assistant state attorney for almost 5 years. I was over there in Daytona and had a lot of experience trying cases and litigating prosecutions. And in 2009, I actually traveled back to North Central Florida, where Gainesville is located, and joined my father, Jeffrey Meldon, who I know that you're well acquainted with. And we started practicing personal injury law, wrongful death, criminal defense, basically consumer protection, all of that, anything to help people in our community. And then in 2017, I moved a remote office under Meldon Law, so we still are under the same umbrella, down to South Florida. And since then, I've been representing people in Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade counties, which are the 3 largest counties in South Florida, and we have about 8 to 10 million people, I believe, that live down here. So like you up in Chicago, we deal with some really great people, and we have the opportunity and privilege to help people
growing up in
throughout
Gainesville, that's a college town, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. It's the biggest. It's the biggest student population in the state of Florida. There's the University of Florida, which has over 50,000 students, and then it also has a very large junior college called Santa Fe College, which has about 30,000 students. So between the two colleges, there's it's definitely a college town.
You grew up there, and then I think like most kids, they just want to get away, and so you headed out to William and Mary, huh?
I did. I was up in Williamsburg, and I loved it up there. It was definitely a shock for me because I grew up in a college town, and then Williamsburg, Virginia, where William and Mary is located, is a colonial town, and it's actually a great little town. When things get back to normal, I encourage anybody who wants to really experience some history of our great nation to check it out. Jamestown is right near there, and they have some really cool historic monuments. But I went there actually because I got a tennis scholarship, and I had the opportunity to play Division I tennis. And I wasn't good enough to play at the University of Florida, and I felt like I had a great opportunity with a really challenging education, and I was able to kind of get outside my sphere of influence in Florida, and
I
try
always
new
laugh
things.
because I don't know if you know this, but Lou Holtz used to be the football coach at William and Mary, and his joke was that
Yes.
that when it was a great experience for him, but on his football team there was just too many Marys and not enough Williams.
Not enough Williams. That's it. Yep. That's true. We have for the listeners out there you're probably aware, we're a member of a really great a group called the Chris Beck's community with lawyers that are like-minded from all over the country, and it's really just incredible to see all of these lawyers who really want to help people get together and meet. And one of our lawyers, John Barry, played football at William and Mary, so we have to remind him of that every time we see him.
So you ended up playing tennis at William and Mary?
I did. I only played for a year. So I played my first year, and I realized I wasn't going to be a professional. And I ended up focusing on academics. I still keep up with my William and Mary friends and the tennis players that I played with. And I really, enjoyed playing tennis, but I focused on what my future was, which was going to be in the realm of law more so than tennis. Although I still love tennis, and I think it's a great sport that everybody should engage in because it's challenging. It's one of those sports where you can play for your entire life, which is a great thing. Yeah, I actually have the Jimmy Everett Tennis Center about a half mile away. Jimmy Everett used to be married to Chris Everett, who, as many of our listeners are probably aware, is one of the best female tennis players of all time. So they started this incredible tennis facility literally half a mile away from me. So I've got 24 courts, some really good people. And so I try to play not as much as I used to. Honestly, I've been derelict in doing it as much as I want to. But I think the self-quarantine has, kind of encouraged me when we are able to go back and live our normal lives again to
I get it. Yeah,
to be more active.
What's when I was doing some background research on you, the part that hit me was the time that you went right in to be a state's attorney and representing the government. And tell me about that experience, how that helped you as a trial lawyer.
Oh, it's incredible. So the first week I was employed with the state attorney's office in Daytona, they gave me 2 cases to try by myself. One on Tuesday and one on Thursday. I started on a Monday. Daytona is actually the Wild West of Florida in some ways because it's a very transient city. There's the NASCAR races, there's the bike weeks, there's the spring breaks, there is Biketoberfest. There's just it's a very tourist centered city, so there's a lot of things that go on, as you can probably imagine. And I think we had 250,000 cases going through our system every year. It's something ridiculous, the amount of citations and arrests that we're going through. So when you got in there, it was like you're facing the fire immediately. So within a week, I picked 2 jury trials, and I won my first one, and then the second one I actually lost on a judgment of acquittal. My star witness showed up and was impaired, so the judge the judge told me to come and approach the bench and said, "Look, I smell some alcohol coming from your the victim." It wasn't the defendant; it was the victim in the case. and he ordered the bailiff to breathalyze the victim in court, and ended up holding him in contempt. So instead of the defendant going to jail, the victim went to jail, but the judge released him a couple hours later and granted the defense's motion to acquit. So it was definitely an eventful first week. And within my time there, I was able to pick over 60 juries. About a year and a half in, I was promoted to the special prosecution unit, where I was dealing with capital felonies. I was able to try a murder case and multiple sexual assault cases. I worked with the U.S. Secret Service for about 3 months. I went to one of their week-long seminars and learned about forensics with regards to the sex crimes that were occurring on the internet. This is back in 2007. It was still pretty early on, so prosecutors didn't really know how to be able to track down who were victimizing people through the internet. And so we were able to learn some intricacies. So I brought it back. I was the only prosecutor in the state of Florida at that time to be involved with the U.S. Secret Service. So it was kind of an opportunity for me to learn what was going on behind the scenes. It was like I remember they sent me to Hoover, Alabama, and there was like a CSI setup. They had I think 25, 50 prosecutors from around the country, and they brought us back to their lab, and we were able to see all this fancy computer equipment, and it was really interesting because that was the early days. But I really enjoyed doing it. I think I developed some really good relationships with a lot of people when I was prosecuting and working with the government. And I don't always agree with what the government does, but I do think that the service that a lot of the prosecutors are doing are great services, and I think that overall it was an incredible experience, not only from a perspective of getting trial experience and picking juries, but also helping people, which allowed me to kind of continue that mission with my father.
We're doing this interview right now, and it's April 3rd, 2020, and it's a time of a lot of ambiguity right now. It feels like all the witnesses are drunk that you're calling, and how you're going to react to that. But I agree with you. One of the things I when I was a young lawyer, the local prosecuting attorney would allow some of us civil lawyers to what they call a program called DA for a day, where we'd be able to go over there on a Tuesday night and pick up 20 files, and then we try them on a Wednesday, and you had to figure out which one was going to plead, which one was going to go. And usually it was the one that first of all, all these cases were the ones that the regular state attorneys didn't want because they were losers, but they were hard cases. But the ambiguity of not knowing who your witness was, how you couldn't prep them, couldn't do all these other things. It was a totally different world than the civil world that you and I are in now, where we're able to really pick our cases and get them ready for trial and put things on the right way. But I tell you, there's always some ambiguity that pops up in some of these civil cases. Is that your experience too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, you can prepare for anything, but you have to also expect that there's going to be those ambiguities, and that, there's going to be those situations where you need a lawyer like yourself, who can kind of think on his feet, and that can, make sure that if there's an issue that comes up that you didn't expect, how are you going to still be able to get the right message across to the judge and to the jurors and get the truth out, even though it may not seem, sometimes people say one thing, but they mean something else. And it's a challenge, but that's what what trial lawyers have to deal with.
One of the things that I really admire about you, Carey, is that, your family's had a law firm in Florida for a long time. And I really like the adventure that you're on, opening an office down in Southern Florida. it must be quite a challenge for you.
I appreciate that. And it is a challenge. We're growing. I started off by myself. I was actually, when I first moved, I made, let me give you a little bit of background. So my father, he started practicing in 1971. He's always been a solo practitioner, and he's an amazing, lawyer. He's a great marketer. He's been in the Gainesville community, and that's his, and he's been lucky enough to be able to help people for many, many years. And, when I started in 2009, it was a really good experience for me to work with him, work in Gainesville. And I still consider Gainesville my home. In 2017, after 8 years, I finally made partner in the firm. So he made me work for it, which I'm glad he did. And I was able to build kind of a subsection of the firm up there in a criminal practice back up to where it had almost depleted. And now we have a brand new criminal practice up in Gainesville. So that was a success. But I wanted the challenge of trying to do something different. And I had my mother down here, my sister down here, my aunt, and my uncle down here. My aunt, my uncle are lawyers in Miami, and my grandfather actually. I don't know if you know this or not, Joe, but he was a person who had very little education, joined the Air Force. After he got out of the Air Force, he ended up enrolling in Stetson Law School, where I went to in Florida under the GI Bill. And in 1951, he started practicing personal injury or in litigation in Miami, which was very, very rare. There wasn't many PI litigators or civil litigators in the state of Florida at that time. So anyways, he was able to build his practice on his own, was very successful, broke sovereign immunity in the state of Florida, ended up retiring at the age of 47 because he had done so well in his practice. So, I kind of felt like this was my opportunity to do something with my father, but also for my family, and try to expand our legacy and help more people throughout the state of Florida. So what I did is I took all my money that I had in the partnership. I came down to South Florida, and for about 6 months, I was running a practice on my own with a virtual assistant. And what that means is that I had someone answering the phones that wasn't in the office. I was in the office, and then she transferred the calls. Within about a year and a half, now I have 4 full-time employees down here. I'm going to build that. And even though we have 25 employees up in North Florida, I'm looking to match that within the next couple of years, because there's so many people down here that need help. And through the lessons I've learned from you, from my father, from my grandfather, from all my family and friends, I think we can provide that service and continue to grow, hopefully. And so that's what the goal is. But I appreciate the commendation. Joe, I've researched you as well, and I do know, that you have amazing accolades. One of the things I wanted to say to the listeners out there, if they don't know much about you, you actually are an incredible type of firm, because you get cases from other lawyers as well as referrals from clients, which is really rare in the legal world, and for other lawyers to refer and recommend cases to you is one of the biggest compliments you can get. And I know that you've been throughout your career, you've been lecturing, you've been writing articles, you've been trying to teach other lawyers how to be the best that they can be, and not only do you help the other lawyers, but you obviously help your clients. So I don't mean to talk too much, but I wanted to make sure that your listeners know that, because I'm sure you don't talk about yourself enough, and they should know that that your practice has been built on a very unique structure, which I don't think there's many law firms in this country.
One of the things that I when I was researching for this is that tie to your grandfather. I understand that your grandfather is the one that handed you your diploma at Stetson's. That must have been quite a moment for you.
He did. It was. Now, it was an amazing moment. That year, he actually was awarded the highest honor by the Florida Supreme Court, which was the pro bono Tobias Simon Pro Bono Award, because he was doing pro bono work from the time that he retired, and he was the first white member of the NAACP in Daytona, and so they finally recognized him after, and this was in 2005. He had retired probably, I think, in the late 70s or I don't, the mid 70s, but he continued his his work for the people that needed work, the underprivileged. And so for him to sit on the stage and be able to give me my diploma was really meaningful. And he passed away shortly after. So it was one of those memories that you just can never recreate. And it's
the legacy aspect of it for, when you think about your grandfather, working so hard to, be a pioneer down in Southern Florida, and now you're recreating it. That must get you up in the morning.
Oh man, I am so proud of everybody in our firm. We have Zoom conferences, and if the listeners out there don't know what Zoom is, they probably all do. It's kind of like FaceTime, but we conference first thing in the morning and the afternoon, and the attitude and everyone pitching in is just incredible. It always gets me up in the morning, but even the last few weeks, I feel so lucky to have the opportunity to be surrounded by people who are optimistic, that are, we just set up a hotline to try to help people get through the coronavirus situation in Florida, meaning that, it's not necessarily we're going to get any fees from it, but if they need to know how to get their loans in, or if they want to know, where do they go if they get sick, where do they get tested, we're trying to be there for people that need help, because we have the ability to help them. And getting up every morning and having that opportunity for our callers to call, and we've been getting a lot of calls because we've been trying to get the word out. Look, we'll help you. We'll be a resource for you. And every single one of our employees have bought into the hotline, even though they're dealing with things that they have never dealt with before. Sometimes it's just listening and saying, we understand, this is tough. We're all in the same boat. Everybody's struggling right now. Let's stand together as a community. And I think that, but you have to live it. You have to do it every morning. And I know you do it too. I remember seeing you at 6:30 a.m. in the gym working out before a conference back in Atlanta last year.
Well,
so I know you're
I'm
early
at
waker,
this,
and you get going
your
right
website,
away.
meldonlaw.com. And I'm looking at this unbelievable website, which has COVID-19 updates, and it's got all of he talked about the free attorney hotline, which has got that, but it's also got all the resources from, it seems like, North Florida, South Florida, the whole thing. This is really impressive.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're still working on it because it's new, but yeah, I mean, I can tell you it was Jeffrey's leadership that really brought that about, and all of our employees have bought in, and we're getting calls 24 hours a day, and it's just Joe, you've done incredible work for your clients. I mean, you're probably the top litigator in Chicago and that area, and anywhere in Illinois for that sake, but the opportunity to give back is one that is more valuable than any amount of money that we can make. And we're in a fortunate position to have that ability to give back and at least try to calm people, because I think panic and fear is the biggest enemy that we're facing. Obviously the coronavirus is causing that. And that's, we have to pray for everyone that's facing it. And we're all going to lose friends and family most likely in the next few weeks, and it's going to be really, really tough. And every day is going to get, it's going to always be hard, but I think optimism and be focused on what can you do today and what can you do at that moment
You know,
to extend that help is
I
what
too believe
we're
this
trying
is
to
going to
focus on.
be a defining moment for a lot of folks, personally, professionally, law firms, and boy, seeing this website that you guys have and the reach, our reach to the community, I'm very impressed. But why don't we switch gears a little bit here, and tell me, Carey, I always talk to folks about defining moments, both personally and professionally, because I think when folks hire a lawyer, sure they hire them for all the great results that you get, and it's word of mouth, a lot of word of mouth. I know that you guys get a lot of referrals from clients, existing clients, because you guys have come through for them. Tell us some defining moments in your personal life that have shaped you.
Wow, that's a tough question. I think, gosh, that's a really hard one. I can tell you, I can give you some anecdotes. I think it's hard to talk about one particular moment. I can tell you, from my experience, if we want to relate it back to what we were talking about before, I grew up playing tennis almost my entire life, right? And it's a single sport, meaning that you win or you lose. And I think one of the lessons I learned through playing that sport was that adversity, and look, it's not apples to apples, so I don't want people out there to think that I'm comparing tennis to the coronavirus, but this is just from my personal perspective, is that it's not lose everyone loses on a daily basis to some level, right? But it's about picking yourself up and about be able to get ready for the next point or the next match, and how do you conduct yourself while you're doing that? In other words, are you going to be a sportsman? Are you going to be someone that is known as a gracious winner? Are you going to be someone that is known as a sore loser? Are you going to be someone that envies someone else or doesn't give other people credit? And so, during my time where I played competitive tennis, which was probably about 10 years, I was, I I had played a lot of tournaments, and I was pretty good, but I wasn't going to be world class. I think I learned from that personal experience about the ability to, live in the present and to not worry about the past, and always focus on what was going to be the next point. What's the next step? How do I get better? What could I have done different? I mean, I think probably you've had a similar situation, but I don't know. You maybe have won all your cases, but I haven't won all of my trials. But I've had sometimes my clients on the cases that I've lost have been more appreciative than the ones on the cases that I've won, just simply because they knew how hard I tried for them, and that when no one else was there to try to help them, I was willing to try. And I think so personally, I've always kind of had that, I don't care about what happened the last, last point. I want to focus on what the next point's going to be.
That folks that have been in competitive sports or activities seem to be suited for litigation, because there are wins and losses, and you do have to come back from a tough loss. I always, my wife and I like to watch tennis. We play a little bit. Our daughter started playing this year, and it was so fun to go watch her play in high school. But when we watch the high level folks play, and just the resilience that for these multiple set games, it's just absolutely amazing to me that they can last that long after they win one set and they lose, etc. I don't I have such an appreciation for folks that do that, and I it's the mental edge, isn't it? I mean, that basically you're able to regroup and just forget what happened a minute ago.
Right, right. I think so. I think you have to have a quick memory. But tell me. I mean, about your trials. You probably had trials that have been weeks long, and think about that. I mean, to be mentally engaged for weeks upon weeks in litigation, I think is even more impressive. A tennis match does take a lot of. It's 90% mental, and you do have to be always focused and not lose your eye on the prize. But and I think trial litigation is like that. And I think you're exactly right. I think what we do is almost a competitive. I wouldn't call it a sport, but it does require that focus, and that when sometimes you'll lose emotion or lose an objection, or you'll have testimony not go your way, and you got to let it go and move forward. And so I do think there's a translation with regards to that being my personal
You talked
experience
about
my
heading up to
professional
Alabama
work
to
life.
be part of that group that it was almost like a CSI episode. And then some of your other trials, are there any other cases or trials or clients that were ones that you walk around today, in 2020, and you look back and you say, boy, I felt like I made a difference?
Yes, there definitely is. I mean, there's a family in Michigan, up near Detroit, so somewhere close to Chicago, who was down in Daytona, and it was just a really nice family enjoying a vacation when I was a prosecutor in Daytona, and the mother ended up getting sexually assaulted outside of her hotel while she was watching the beach, and the two kids ended up they were probably in their teens. They ended up watching this happen, and the perpetrator ended up running away. They got away. We were able to find him through DNA evidence, and I got to know the family pretty well. I flew up to Michigan and was able to develop a relationship with the husband and the wife.
Being in Gainesville, you were kind of an inland person, and then Gainesville, you became kind of Gainesville's kind of an interior area, and then Daytona's on the coast, right?
Yes, completely different. So Daytona is more of a vacation spot. Gainesville's a college town.
Yeah.
And
so you were talking about your case with that poor gal that was just visiting and enjoying her time down there, and some monster just completely changed their lives.
Yes, it was exactly what it was. It was a monster, and so it was a family of four, and I was in my I was probably 27, 28, and I developed a relationship with the entire family to the extent that they would just call and we would just talk sometimes, and I think they just wanted just someone to kind of be there and understand. It's hard when you're going through this tragedy that you really can't share with anyone else, and it kind of hit me at some point that that what we're doing is not a game. It's real life, and I end up, I still do have, I've had contact as recently as last year with the family, and it just we were able to obviously the perpetrator was caught and was convicted and will never see the light of day again, which is great. But I think the big takeaway was that as we have a large responsibility as lawyers to help people who've been whose lives have been turned upside down, and a lot of times it's hard. You get a lot of people that say, well, lawyers they just do this, or they just cause more problems, they raise our insurance premium, all they care about is this. But I can tell you that's not been my experience with the lawyers that I associate with. That there's deep binding relationships that never end, and that that was one of them. But there's been countless others where you can get a feeling of being able to help someone, that they when they need help. And so and there's a lot of professions like that, Joe, right? I mean, there's medical professionals, there's first responders. A lot of people have that opportunity, but I'm grateful to have that opportunity, and I'm sure you are too. I know you've helped people through catastrophic situations that you can never even comprehend.
it seems like, one thing that is really important for a lawyer is being able to be that person that stands between a very powerful interest in your client. And, the one thing that in doing my research on your background is that, you've really developed a reputation as a lawyer who's able to, having been a prosecutor, to be able to figure out when somebody is been overcharged or it got caught into something that maybe wasn't their character, and is a bit able to reach out to the state's attorney and either work something out or figure out a defense to listen. This person may have been a mistake, but they're not a criminal.
Right. Or, at the end of the day, people make mistakes. And at the end of the day, no one is perfect. And some actions, you can't ever explain, and you don't know why, but you have to make that attempt, and I think, with every single one of our clients, whether it's a civil client or a criminal client, our job is to listen, first of all, and then, make sure that we, use our ethical obligations to represent them the best way that we see fit. And that's it's a very hard job, right? I mean, how long have you been, you've been working with individuals your whole life. Now you do, you're mostly doing plaintiff's work, but those are people that have been wronged, and, you have to explain them. Sometimes they have a case, sometimes they don't have a case. And it's really a complicated profession, because justice is never equally distributed as much as we all want it to be.
Right. You developing your office down in South Florida. I just, like I said, I love when folks don't just sit on their laurels and make a decision that, hey, I'm going to be comfortable. This had to be somewhat, I don't know if the listeners understand how far Gainesville is from Miami. It's a long ways away. It's a world away. Having driven, up in the Chicago area down all the way to Naples, I tell you, when we enter Florida, the northern part, we still got 8 or 10 hours to go. It's a long ways.
Yes, it's a long ways. It's about a 5-hour road trip to our office in Gainesville. So it's far, but it's exciting. And we're doing, we just started handling these business interruption claims down here, and we're doing it as a service to the businesses. And it's been really nice to meet new business owners down here who need some help. And we offer them some free advice on how to make a claim. We understand that it's, when I say a claim, it's a claim against the insurance company. You're not making a claim against the government. But in South Florida, it's a completely different world than North Florida. I mean, you couldn't be more different. The farther south you go in Florida, Joe, the more northern it gets, if that makes sense.
No, I get it. Yeah, it's like people from New York come down there, and it becomes more of a big city, right? Yes,
and good people, great people from all over. We got people from Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, New York, New Jersey. It's a melting pot of the entire United States. So it's been really fun for me to meet people from all over the country.
Well, I'm going to hold you to speaking to us again, Carey, because half a year or a year from now, I want to catch up with you and see how that office is going, and more importantly, I want to hear some of the great stories of all the great stuff that you guys have done for your clients, but also the community engagement. I was looking, anybody that wants to get a background on Carey, they should just go to meldonlaw.com, check out the About Us section, and you'll see all of these stuff that these guys do in the community, the essay contest, the veterans, the scholar athlete program. They're doing outreach. It seems like 80% of what they do isn't about them making money. You guys are role models to us. So thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us. I know that there'll be another side to this coronavirus pandemic that we're in, and I think you guys doing all this great work you're doing for the community is going to pay off in spades, and that folks will know how to deal with it a lot better and running into your firm. So thanks so much for sitting down with me, Carey.
Thank you, Joe. We're thinking of you up in Chicago, to you and your family, and all the people up there. We hope you get through this, and we'll see you on the other side.
All right. Take care, Carey.
All right, Joe. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the opening statement with Joe Shannon. You can find us on the internet at shannonlawgroup.com or telephone our office at 312-578-9501. Have a terrific day.